Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to welcome you to our Civic Conversation on Workforce Development. I'm Scott Blackwell with the Community Foundation for a Greater Richmond. I'm the Chief Community Impact Officer, and I'll serve as your moderator this evening. To start our night, we're going to hear from James Davis, who is a Human Resources Technician with the City of Richmond Department of Human Services.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the call. You could have been all the places in the world, but you are here with us today, and we greatly appreciate it. So I'd like to start this talk by talking a little bit about myself. My name is James Davis, Human Service Technician here at the City of Richmond, individual that's been born and raised in Richmond my whole life. An individual that also grew up somewhat on the wrong side of the tracks, for lack of a better words. For many years, I spent my life running the streets and, having friends that were dying, being incarcerated, selling drugs and all of these many different things that so many of us in the city of Richmond, we grew up in, which is just terrible situations sometimes, right? But I myself was an individual that dropped out of school at a young age, dropped out of school in 8th grade to go into those streets. Was homeless for many, many years, right? Trying to find my way along the way. So, you get involved with that drug culture and that drug culture kind of takes over your whole life, right? You get this street mentality. So many of us in these communities are suffering from lack of exposure. So we gravitate towards things that expose us to information, whether that's good or bad. Me being an individual that came from out of those housing developments that hung in those streets, I finally got to the point one day where I said I had to do something with myself. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And from being incarcerated, I found myself going towards the workforce center. I'm an individual that's a product of the workforce center. The workforce center is what actually gave me the ability to do what I do here today. The workforce center is actually one of those situations that probably saved my life and saving a lot of lives here in the city of Richmond. These workforce centers are very, very important. It actually gave me the fire. It put me in the game to help the people, and it actually gave me the ability to reach back and grab those individuals just like myself. And some of those things that we do now here in the city of Richmond, I'll talk about later, but these workforce centers are a piece that's a staple in these communities, that so many individuals are getting access to the resources and things to truly change their lives. And a lot of these programs that we're seeing through community colleges, through CDLs, through trade programs and apprenticeship programs are things that's saving a lot of individuals' lives. And I like to take this time to really appreciate all of you all on this call here today, because a lot of you all are the reason why a lot of us are finding our ways. And that's really important for me to say. A workforce center not only is a place that you can call somewhat home or that extended home away from home, but this is also a place where you can find out who you are and some of the things that you're inspired to do, but also get the opportunity to get involved with the work to serve your community. Your local workforce center is doing great jobs in these communities, whether it's at the state side, whether it's at the city side. A lot of individuals that we talk to in the community that have no hope, right? A lot of individuals don't have no hope because all they've seen is a certain way of living. When they're going into some of these centers are sparking fire in people that some of us didn't know we had. I was one of them, right? I spent a lot of my years destroying people for a living. That's what the culture gave us, right? We destroyed people for a living, right? I used drugs. I put drugs up my nose and in my body, myself and so many of us, just like myself, right? We've been incarcerated in these prisons and jails and all these other things, right? But when you go in front of these workforce center and these career advisors and so on, these are people that will actually tell you that they believe in you. So I like to end this really with just saying to everyone on this call, I really, truly do appreciate you all for all you do. You could have been all the places in the world, but you are here with us today, and we greatly appreciate it. The city of Richmond appreciates you, and the people appreciate you for all the work that you do. Continue to shine and be great. Thank you. I see that GQ19 in the comments. How you doing? GQ19, that's Elamar.
So, wow, James, we started off with a bang. I think during your remarks, you said spark a fire, and you certainly did that for me. I'm guessing the other people who are on this call feel the same way. So let me welcome you again to our second Civic Action Conversation, which is brought to you by RVA Engage. Let me tell you just a quick bit about RVA Engage. It's a collaboration of community engagement professionals in the nonprofit, corporate, and government sectors, plus education. They seek to inform and catalyze our community members to engage in issues that most impact our region. On the slide, you can see the sponsors of tonight's event, and I'd like to thank all of them. First, we have the Bonner Center of Civic Engagement at the University of Richmond, ChamberRVA, the Community Foundation, PlanRVA, VCU, and VPM. I want to offer special thanks to our event managers for the evening who are behind the scenes making this happen. At the Bonner Center for Civic Engagement at the University of Richmond, we have Sylvia Gale. She's the executive director. She will be posting questions, reading your questions later, and helping us during our Q&A section. We also have Alexandra Byram, who's the director of communications and community relations for the Equity and Community Unit at the University of Richmond. And then two of my colleagues at the Community Foundation, Gail Cavallaro, who is the Community Engagement Manager, and Christina Mastriani, who is our VP of Community Engagement. And then finally, thanks and welcome to Sid Kumar from PlanRVA. He is their Community Outreach Coordinator. So, the 2022 Civic Action Conversation series are focusing on critical regional priorities and possible action steps for engagement. The topics we have chosen are those that reflect some of the highest priorities and needs in our community. Tonight, we invite you to relax, listen, learn, and take action in a sense that makes good sense for you. Tonight, I would view it as your entry point for action. So let's kick off tonight and let's start talking about workforce development. Workforce development can mean a lot of things. It can range from entrepreneurs to small business to even Fortune 500 companies. Tonight, however, we're going to narrow the focus and the scope and really look at the obstacles that the unemployed and the underemployed workers in our region face and how we collectively can remove those obstacles. The purpose of today's session is to take advantage of the expertise in our region. We have a great group of people. There are many, many more who could have been invited, and we thank them for their work as well. Before we really jump in, let me offer a few housekeeping rules. First, your microphones are muted. Your way of communicating with us is through the Q&A section. So feel free to use that. You'll see that button at the bottom of your screen, and we will try to reply to questions throughout this session. That we will also be posting resources throughout the program, and they can be found in the chat. And as mentioned earlier, we are recording this session, and it will soon be available on rvaengage.org. We will send you an email letting you know that that recording is available, and we hope you'll share it with your friends. So let me start with an interesting fact. I read in the paper yesterday, good timing, that there are 11 million open jobs in the United States. That is 2 open jobs for every job seeker. So think about that, and as we go through the evening, it really is a job seeker's market. Why does workforce development matter to the Community Foundation, and why does it matter to RVA Engage? It matters because our mission is to facilitate solutions for those who are challenged in our community. And challenge could mean a lack of resources or finances. It could mean a lack of a quality education or suffering from historic inequities. We seek to have every individual have access to their full potential, and full potential means a good education. It means a well-paying and satisfying job and a safe place to lie your head at night. So workforce is obviously one of our key priorities. So with that, I have the pleasure of introducing Brian Anderson, who is the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, ChamberRVA. Instead of reading bios, what we thought we'd do tonight is list one of their most noteworthy professional accomplishments. Since we're talking about jobs and work, we're going to take that path. So let me share Brian's greatest achievement, and there are many that he's accomplished for our community, but his is achieving Certified Chamber of Commerce Executive designation. So Brian will be with us for a few minutes, and then I'll come back on and we will look forward to answering any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that introduction. More importantly, thank you for the chance to be here tonight. I'm grateful for the Civic Action Conversation series developed by so many phenomenal people and leaders in our region. And this topic is very near and dear to my heart. So happy to share a little bit tonight about some data that we're looking at as we try to work with all of you on the call, but also some of the others not on the call on this workforce question. So I'm gonna start with a couple of slides to set the stage. And one of them Scott just referred to, and that's that the national number, but I've also heard recently the local number. Brian Davis may speak to it later, but there's 3 jobs in our region currently posted for all of every individual seeking unemployment or listed as unemployment. So given that, we certainly have an opportunity for job seekers. So starting with this first set of data, unemployment trends, you can see that we are now at about 3.7%, which is now below the 3.9% number of about 5 years ago, but more importantly, half of the high point we reached during the pandemic of 7%. So unemployment is extremely low for our region and has been dropping rapidly. Next slide. So now we think about who are the unemployed that make up those numbers. And the bulk of that, as you can see from this chart, are aged 35 to 54. And that's a little different from other points in our history where unemployment was either low or high. Typically, we would see a younger skew of unemployed, but to see this 35 to 54 represent the greatest number of unemployed is a little different. And it speaks to the fact that I think skill sets have changed, or the requirements needed for certain positions or requiring a certification or some type of skill set. We've got some work to do to help that age group, or those 2 age groups, get back into the employment game. Next. Breaking it down by race, you can see that it's very close between our people of color, Americans, and white Caucasian Americans. Both groups are hovering around 12,000 people in our region that are unemployed. And then by ethnicity, our non-Hispanics are vastly leading. Non-Hispanics are not high in unemployment. It is the 2 we just mentioned. Again, about 23,000 between the non-Hispanic ethnic population. Moving to gender, males slightly outpace our female unemployed, with both groups hovering around 12,000 each as well. And then the next slide, about 26% of our region's population are underemployed. We talk a lot about unemployed, but there's also a huge issue right now, given this whole conversation workforce, of underemployed. So this means that those that are working in careers which are not using their fullest skill set, or education rather, and their certifications within education that they've worked hard to achieve. So where you see the purple numbers are negative, these represent people who have qualifications that their jobs now are not using fully. So if you've got some college or associate's degrees and graduate degrees, you're having a hard time finding the employment that equals the level of education that you have. And then next slide, this data is that we're looking at very closely now, sharing it with anybody that's interested in looking at it. And there's a lot of different research going on out there. When you look at this, the gaps of occupations, these are those that require a 4-year degree. And then you see that that these also are where these programs or completions of an education feed into these particular job categories. So occupations that require a degree, associate's degree to doctorate, the largest gaps are in short-term substitute teachers, securities, commodities, and financial sales agents. You can also see areas like logisticians toward the bottom, and software developers. All of these our talent gaps that we have that we've got to address with our talent pipeline as we work on this workforce question. And then looking at degrees, our last slide, looking at degrees that require some certification or some college, but not an associate's or above. You can see the number one are truck drivers. This is a national trend, but Richmond is certainly in need of talking about how we can address this, given that logistics are a big industry within our region, a target sector for us, if you will, with both the centers being built for distribution, but also the fact that we have two major interstates coming through our region. There are large regional pipeline gaps also for nursing assistants, bookkeeping, accounting, and auditing clerks. And I would just say across the gamut of both requiring a degree or a certification below an associate's degree, IT is another major sector that we need positions across the spectrum related to information technology, cyber being just one of those that we've also got to talk about. So those slides help set the stage, Scott, for kind of where things are within the region as far as a snapshot of the workforce. And I'd also go ahead and say that first slide, when you look at 3.8, 3.6% unemployment, for those of us that were in this business in 2008, 9, and 10, when unemployment was as much as 10, 12, and 15% across the country, I don't think we felt we would ever be in this situation where unemployment at 3.6% is really full employment. And you do have those data points that Scott mentioned, where there's 1, 2, and 3 times as many positions open as there are those job seekers. So that sets a scale. Happy to talk about some questions, Scott.
Okay, thanks. While we wait for a few questions to come in, we posed a question in the chat asking you what your first job was. And we got a lot of answers, retail, which is exactly what I did. We had an answer of a page in the General Assembly. Some of the more interesting things to me, we have a messenger from Manhattan here. We have several people who worked at snack bars, at pools and golf courses. Hardee's was represented, YMC camp counselor, and one that's near and dear to my heart because I lived in Iowa a while is a farm worker in Iowa, and the type of job is called walking the beans. I will let you Google that and figure out what walking the beans means, but we're glad to have that person with us tonight. So Brian, let me start with a question for you, and hopefully Sylvia will have some from our audience. During COVID, and right now, in fact, a lot of people are moving to Richmond. A great number of people are moving to Richmond, and I'm curious for your take on why they're moving to Richmond and what type of jobs they're seeking, or are they coming here with jobs?
I think there's a combination. You've got companies like CoStar and Capital One, just to mention 2 large employers, very good companies, offer wonderful compensation. People, as they post positions, we're getting people looking from higher cost center communities looking at Richmond for that reason, because there's jobs being posted and we're a great place to live. I also think that that second point, we are beyond a great place to live. We've got attributes and amenities that most places our size or even bigger do not have. So when you match a great place to live, great quality of life, and low cost of living, it becomes an appealing place for people who can be mobile to look to. So high cost centers is where we're getting some looks from. We also have a lot of young people who now see Richmond as a cool city, a cool place to be, and they're looking at us as their first place to start. Because again, there's a lot of different types of jobs to begin your career, and then you decide, what you really want to do full time once you get here. So it's a combination of those things.
Okay. So am I accurate when I say that all of these great people moving here are not taking job opportunities from our long-term residents?
I think that's fair, because I think, and again, we're looking at what I just showed you a lot deeper and a lot of different categories to understand the question that you're asking a little more. But I think it's a lot more of those that have 4-year degrees and above. And so we're getting that talent piece. And again, that speaks to the young, but that doesn't help us for the 35-year-old who may not have the certification they need and may have been working in hospitality or construction or some other job that they may have been displaced during COVID, and now they've got to figure out how they re-enter the workforce. So I think it's a combination of, if you've got the certification or the degrees, you get the front door opening a lot quicker. But if you don't have those, it's a little harder to to redeploy back into the workforce under the current conditions.
Great, thank you. How about this, Brian? What is our community doing, or what is the chamber doing to focus on specialized populations? And I'm thinking of our Latino neighbors. I'm thinking of disabled people, seniors, or is anything going on that's focusing on these populations, which are work ready and significant in their number?
I know you're going to hear from Elizabeth later, and I just want to give a quick shout out to Network to Work and those types of programs. I think when you look at those that have a little more difficult path to employment, whether it be the resume is not up to date, they've not been employed for a couple of years or 18 months, you need that counseling and wraparound services that we're able to offer through Elizabeth and John and other people that work on that. But there's not as much coordination, John, Scott, in my opinion, with those special populations you mentioned. We're working hard with the Hispanic Chamber on identifying how we can partner better. We're working on things like minority supplier diversity, which in turn means that Black and brown business owner has more business. They're going to hire people more that may be on the sideline. So there's a few initiatives starting, but certainly not as coordinated or as connected as it ought to be. So conversations like this, I think, are going to be enlightening and help bring more of us to know each other and how we can partner better.
Great, thanks. We've got a question from Ann, and I'll ask the question. You might be able to answer it, Brian, or we may wait for it later with our panel. But Ann asked that she's hearing of recent change requirements into the CDL license, requiring a class component is one of the main reasons that people are not going after a CDL. If you're familiar with this, do you have any thoughts about this change?
I do not. And there's been a lot of talk about everything from interstate and interstates, and you can drop the age requirement from 21 to 18 across the board, but that's as far as I know. So Elizabeth and others might have a little more information. But given our need for truck drivers, the whole relooking of the CDL licensing should be a major priority.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Ann, for that question.
Elizabeth says for that.
And we'll get to that a little bit later. Yeah.
Scott, this is Sylvia. We do have another question coming in about the outlook for renewable energy and green jobs in the region. I wonder if we could pause on that.
Well, I think if you look at actions like the City Council of Richmond and what they have been looking at, everything from the use of natural gas in their operations, declaring that climate change is an issue that the city needs to look at all of their programs and operations and see how it plays. I think the conversation is becoming much more abundant, and you look at what's happening with offshore wind, you look at what's happening with the great expansion of solar. I believe all of those are going to continue to grow, electric vehicles. And as that does, then you're going to see companies have to move with market conditions and create those jobs. Some of them are already being created, but continue to create them. So if I understand your question the way I think I do and the way I would look at it, we have to make sure our pipeline of training and developing people also includes both the vernacular and also the pathways to how they could get those jobs. One, understand what the jobs are, but also know how they could be certified for them. And then the last point I'd make is there's a study being kicked off currently that's going to look at, I think Dr. ChamberRVA is going to be leading it, looking at what are the jobs for the next 5 to 10 years, which certainly the green energy field speaks to that. We need to know it the best way we can, at least what the skill set is. Maybe not exactly what the person will be doing, but what skill set will be required, and can we start to begin to deliver training and development both in high school all the way up through post-secondary that'll help people be prepared for that.
Thank you, Brian. I wanted to mention too that the slides we're using today, we will make those available to you. I think Brian's first couple of slides were very interested related to the demographics in our region. So I want to thank Brian. He is a great leader in our community, a busy man, and we're so thankful to have him with us for a few minutes. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Scott. We wish everybody well for the rest of the conversation. Let's don't let it stop tonight.
So to our audience, we're going to do something fun now. We're going to launch a poll. There are going to be 2 questions in the poll. Be sure you scroll down and see the second question. I'm going to give you a few minutes to answer those. We're going to see where people register their thoughts, and I'll share with you the correct answer. So let's enjoy the poll for a minute. So I am guessing we could show the results at this point. Okay, so the first question was, poverty is obviously an issue in our region. In the region, what percent of families earn less than $35,000 annually? So the significant answer here was 35%. That is not accurate, but it's close to being accurate, and I'll tell you why. 25% is the percent of our regional population who earn less than $35,000 annually. The reason I said 35 is a good answer as well is that is the percent for Black households in our region. And in fact, 45% is an accurate number because that is the number of Latino households in our region that make below $35,000. So you can see the spread. It certainly varies by demographic group, 25% and higher. Secondly, small businesses are those who employ fewer than 250 employees. What do you think the overall percent is for regional employees who work in small business? It looks like the number one answer there is 65% and at 35% of the vote, and congrats, you're correct. This may be surprising to some of you. Usually when we're thinking of jobs and employment, we tend to think of large corporations, but 65% really indicates that there's a broad selection of jobs in our community. You'll probably hear later during this discussion that small business is having a difficult time keeping up with the demands for increased wages, better benefits, and working from home. So thanks for participating in the poll. And now we're going to move on to our next speaker. It's my delight, really, to introduce my friend John Doherty. John is the project manager and the leader of employment engagement at Network to Work RVA. Now, his greatest professional accomplishment is that he started his own consulting practice, which is thriving, he helps nonprofits think differently and do differently to achieve greater impact. So check out his company online. Here's your commercial. It's called Human Services Innovations. So with that, I turn it over to John. And again, I encourage all of you to ask some questions in the Q&A feature.
All right. Good evening, everyone. And thanks, Scott, for the introduction and the commercial. I guess I needed to remember what I put in there. So tonight, I'm going to talk to you about a project that we've been working on over the last couple of years. And the reference that I was given leading into this is really talking about the concept of the leaky pipe that exists in our workforce system and how to effectively connect our unemployed and underemployed individuals in the region with good paying jobs that have a solid career pathway to self-sufficiency and sustainability. So if you take nothing else away from my message here, I want to start by saying Workforce Coalition, RVA, that I'm going to introduce first. Think of that as the effort to bring the systems together to close that leaky pipe in order to make sure it is easier for employers to get the job seekers they need and job seekers to get connected to those good paying jobs. And then the second component of that, the project that really leads Workforce Coalition RVA's efforts to achieve that goal is Network to Work RVA, which I will tell you a little bit more about. But that's really about how do we use tools and technology and an approach to workforce development that leverages the resources across the system in order to move people more swiftly through and making better connections to those career pathway opportunities. So the first slide here, the Workforce Coalition RVA was formed in 2019 with a sole purpose of providing a reliable pipeline of workers in high demand fields. And for our region, those fields include healthcare, manufacturing and logistics, construction and trades, and information technology. These are high demand fields because they both provide the opportunity for people to get on a career pathway and up a career pathway that can support them and sustain them, but also are in high demand in our region. So our employers and our local economy really benefit when we're able to make this connection. So our goal is to connect prepared job seekers to these living wage jobs and opportunities, along with the career progression that helps the company grow, helps the individual grow, and helps our local region thrive. And we worked over a couple of years to really achieve this by establishing a shared vision and goals and bringing resources together across the systems that lead this work in our region. Next slide. So these are the founding partners and ongoing support members of Workforce Coalition RVA. All of those logos there should look familiar. Community College Workforce Alliance, we'll hear more from Elizabeth in a bit. ChamberRVA, the Capital Region Workforce Partnership that runs our federally funded local workforce offices, Office of Community Wealth Building through the City of Richmond, and United Way, each playing a specific part. And then the Community Foundation at the outset of this was really what facilitated our opportunity to bring these organizations together to establish that shared vision for a successful coalition. Next slide. So Network to Work. This is the part of where we moved from bringing the coalition together to an actionable strategy for how we advance this effort. Network to Work is a technology platform that provides a solution-based approach to the work married with that technology tool in order to connect those employers with quality job seekers, and those job seekers to have access to customized supports through a service provider network that is managed by United Way of Greater Richmond and Petersburg. And each component of this is what really makes Network to Work RVA unique, is bringing these three components together in order to make this process not only effective and efficient, but also sustainable. Next slide, please. So I think we jumped past one, but I'm okay. What we're covering here. Okay, so here's the network approach. And this logo or this image, I think, is very clear. What our goal is to connect employers that have quality jobs at quality wages with job seekers through our job seeker network that matches that potential of the job seeker to those careers and those career pathways, and then support both the employer and the job seeker by offering both preparatory training and support systems, as well as life-ready training skills and resources. So it's not just the technical component, but it's also making sure the individuals have the soft skills and the necessary resources, childcare, transportation, et cetera, to make this effort possible. Next slide. So this is a quick look at what's happening in each of our industry areas at a high level. What we're trying to demonstrate here is we have significant need and significant effort. If we just look at construction trades, there are 172 job seekers over the last 12 months that have completed industry-specific training through Community College Workforce Alliance. And within the network or in the region, we have over 1,000 job seekers who have sought services and supports from our local workforce board that have industry-specific experience in that area that could be matched to available job opportunities. And the same holds true in each of the industry areas outlined there. Next slide, please. So this is just a little snapshot of what we're hearing as a result of our work from our job seekers, our employers, and our provider network. Following COVID-19, we continue to have childcare instability and concerns for personal health and safety that are really challenging people in the opportunities to move back into the workforce. We've already talked a little bit about what our regional unemployment rate is looking like and what is impacting that. On the pre-COVID realities that remain are that we had pre-COVID those same childcare and transportation issues, as well as challenges in matching the life skills and workplace skills and competencies to meet employers' expectations. And there are just a couple of comments in there around what the future of work realities are looking like and what people are telling us from their experience in terms of what the workforce expectations are moving forward and what our employers need. Next slide, please. So how is Network to Work RVA responding? There's really three key components that set us apart. First, we target our engagement of providers based on the need. We are a closed loop system, so we can have ongoing feedback. So we know childcare and transportation are a key need, and we are able to focus our outreach efforts to help build a network that can address that need for our job seekers. We're focused on accessible, community-focused, and relationship-based engagement, which means we offer multilingual platform and communication capacity through our partners and the technology tool. We provide a unique community-based access point where we're leveraging local partners like the Office of Community Wealth Building, our local career centers, as well as what we call community connectors through our libraries and other outlets that allow people to easily connect to the platform. And then what sets us apart in the employer or the job seekers' pursuit is providing very clear, concise, and specific job tickets. So we really focus on what can get you into the job swiftly, what are the basic needs that you need to be able to address in order to be successful on that job, and then show people what a career pathway can look like if you start down that pathway with a particular job. Next slide, please. So my function, as Scott mentioned, is employer relations consultant. I work with employers to help build out those job tickets and support the team in standing this program up in our region. I want to thank you for your time this evening and the opportunity to showcase this, and I'll turn it back over to you, Scott.
Thank you, John. I encourage you all to send your questions in for John. I will start by congratulating him and the work group on this collaboration. It is really, really encouraging to see cross-regional, cross-jurisdictional efforts coming together to better serve those who need jobs and need services in our community. So y'all really have set a great benchmark and great example, and I know that others are following in areas such as housing and education. But let me ask you a question. We've got over 100 interested people on the line here today. What can they do to help Network to Work or to help people or to help your clients?
Yeah, so I think my answer to that is very, very simple. There are two key things that make our system successful. The first is helping our job seekers get connected. And we have, as I referred to, community connectors, and anyone can be a connector. So if you work for an organization, are a part of an organization that has individuals who are unemployed or underemployed, or you yourself are a resource that people turn to for guidance and advice, you could be a community connector. And we would love to have you a part of the team or organizations you work with as part of the team. The second is we always are seeking more employers and more job opportunities that will help people see a future and an opportunity of upward mobility. So if you're an employer on this call and you are focused in one of our industry areas, we would love to be able to put job tickets up for you and help make this pipeline work to benefit your company.
Great. Well, we encourage all of you to join in, check out their website And I'm sure if you have some interest, someone from the group will contact you. So John, we've got a question from one of our audience members, which is, can you tell us a little bit more about how you're supporting job seekers, specifically related to transportation and childcare?
Yeah, so our partners with United Way, what we do in that space is we reach out to organizations that provide free support. So all of our services are free to employers and job seekers. And the way our tool works is that as an individual seeks an employment opportunity, they are able to specifically identify any barrier they have. And if that barrier is, for example, childcare or transportation, based on the information they put into the system, we are able to connect them, whether it is to a financial resource or a particular organization that provides that transportation solution or a childcare solution. Again, for us, as we know, childcare and transportation is some of the leading challenges that are facing our region. And so one of the pieces that we're always focused on is continuing to find resources and supports to close that gap by adding additional resources into our system, but also supporting those organizations that are doing that hard work because of the impact it has on our local region and the individuals.
So let me give you 2 speed round questions and then we'll close it up here. Question 1 is, what do you think your greatest success has been with this project? And question 2, what's your biggest pain point right now? And maybe people could help you with that.
Yeah, those. So the biggest success is seeing the coalition come together. The leading organizations, as you mentioned, Scott, across the region that are really focused on one sole outcome, and that is getting individuals who want a pathway forward in employment up that path with as few barriers as possible. And that coming together in partnership and collaboration has allowed this to happen. So that is the success here. The biggest challenge is job seekers, helping us connect with job seekers through our trusted partners and those of you in the community who are trusted in order to get linked to the system and be able to benefit from this unique opportunity. So if you know people, please connect with us. And I see a question, what's my email address? I will post my Network to Work address in there. It is very simple, john@networktoworkrva.com.
All right, well, thank you so much, John. We are going to move on now to our panel segment. We have 6 panelists with us. We have a wealth of talent here. I'm going to introduce everyone, and as I introduce them, they're going to join us on the screen. We'll get the introductions behind us, and then we'll jump into some questions. So I'm going to start with Katie Comer. She is the head of community development at North America Meta, and some of you may know that Meta really translates to Facebook. At least it does for me. So we're really glad she's here. Her greatest professional accomplishment is to see the positive impact of their metadata centers that they play in our community. Next up, Elizabeth Kramer, who is the Vice President for Workforce Development at the Community College Workforce Alliance. Elizabeth has a long and storied career, so narrowing it down to one thing is really hard for her, but I'm going to go all the way back to 2014, when she was the Workforce Policy Advisor to the Secretary of Commerce in Governor McAuliffe's administration. She worked to scale up a credentialing program to move underemployed adults into self and family sustaining jobs. Today, the Virginia community colleges have awarded 32,000 such credentials with an average increase of 55% in the wages of those who earn those credentials. Thank you, Elizabeth, for that accomplishment. Next up, we're going to welcome James back, our friend from the city of Richmond. His greatest accomplishment is the Richmond Ambassador Program. That program trains community members to be job ready and provides the skills they need to gain today's living wage employment. During the pandemic, James helped 130 people find employment with both companies in the private and public sector. Next up, Megan Rollins, who is the president and CEO of Boaz and Ruth. her greatest accomplishment is that she has led the organization through the nonprofit cycle of in the beginning being successful and then perhaps declining a little bit. And that happens. But she has led this organization back to stability. They're now poised for great growth and she's positioning the organization for the next decade with a very strong board. So congratulations on that accomplishment. Two more great people, and then we'll hear from the rest of them. Tonight we have with us Melody Short. She's the co-founder of Richmond Night Market and Jackson Ward Collective. Her professional accomplishment is that she is the co-founder of these two organizations, Richmond Night Market and the Jackson Ward Collective, that serve and center Black-owned businesses. She hails from Richmond, and it's really her great pride that she's helping to push the community forward. And lastly, we have Capricia Spellman. She's the director of the Office of Community Wealth Building at the City of Richmond. Her accomplishments include her fight for equity, inclusion, and diversity, often for those whose voices are muted. She's now the director of the Office of Community Wealth Building, an incredible accomplishment, and their mission is to strategically focus and support those who endure the perils of generational poverty and really increase access for people to build generational wealth. So I can take a breath. That was a mouthful, but you see the depth and breadth of talented and caring people in our community. So I'm going to start with a question. I encourage you, those of you who are listening, to also send in your questions, and we will hopefully get to all of those. But I'm going to start with Capricia. And the question is, what are the strategies that you prioritize to support underemployed and unemployed people in our region that help them on a pathway to being successful and having sustainable employment?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question and thank you for the introduction. Thank you, RVA Engage. I'm just happy to be here today. One of the strategies that we always try to focus on is to make sure that we align our goals to that which the community needs. And so one of the things we don't want to ever be accused of is doing things to people instead of with people. So we address the needs of individuals as we collect them, and we pull together a 5-point strategy that provides that blueprint for how we can pull that together. We transform systems that impact poverty through our collective impact strategy. We do that with systems coordination or policy advocacy. We also provide quality service delivery to Richmond residents. We want to make sure that everyone has equal access to the services so that they can begin to build the relationships that are necessary to help them overcome those barriers. We want to improve connections to the community. So again, we listen to the people. We're out in the community. We don't do things to people, we do things with them. We include them in our planning and increasing knowledge of resources. They can let us know some things we don't know, and we try to share information with them that they may not have access to otherwise. We try to strengthen the 2-generation approach. So we make sure through BLISS and our MYA, our Mayor's Youth Academy program, that we make sure we leverage level the playing field for individuals in all generations. We want to make sure that we have a holistic approach to family development so that everybody gets the benefit of the resources. And then lastly, we increase opportunities to people who are experiencing poverty so that they can begin to build wealth. Again, it's one thing to get a job, it's one thing to get employment. There's another thing to live a sustainable lifestyle that can then produce wealth for you. And our goal is not just to help people get sustained, but also to help them build wealth so that they don't find themselves or their generations in the same position again.
Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask Katie to answer the same question. What strategies do you prioritize in helping the underemployed or the unemployed in our region?
Yeah, so at Meta, we have a company-wide initiative at really putting the community first across all of our projects. So we broke ground on our Henrico data center in 2017. And one of the things that we do as part of that process is really striving to be a good community partner, whether that's working in school systems to ensure that every student has a one-to-one technology advice so no one is disadvantaged early on, whether that's making sure that during COVID, we were supporting supporting small businesses that might have been impacted by the pandemic through grant programs. When we go into a community, our community development work is at the forefront of everything that we do. Before we put shovels in the ground, before we really try to build out our plan, it truly is a key piece. So one of the ways that we do that is we partner through DPR Construction, our construction company at the site, who's building out these long-term data centers. It can take 5 to 7 years to build out a full data center. And we're making sure that we've got diversity and equity programs embedded in the construction areas. We're making sure that we're promoting our workforce and making sure that we're providing those opportunities locally in the community. And then at our team at Meta, we also have an amazing program like our Hard Hat in Hand program that allows us to concentrate on hiring workforce into that construction realm that can get a full-time job, which is always great. We offer internships. And then I think the key piece is starting early. So like I said, investing in those programs in the community every single day that allow access to education advances locally in Henrico.
That's great. From a philanthropic standpoint, I really do have to credit Katie and Meta for jumping into our community and being of great support. They truly are a partner in the Richmond region. They were instrumental in our support during COVID. So thank you for that very much. So let's bring Elizabeth in. I know that we had a question earlier about CDL, and Elizabeth, you probably are the expert on that. Tuck that in the back of your head and let's get to it, but also tell us about your strategies in supporting underemployed and unemployed in our region.
I'm going to concentrate on two. We have a lot of strategies in community college workforce development, but two I'm going to concentrate on. One's very old school. I am an unabashed believer in the power of education and training to transform lives. And some of that is based on personal experience. I found myself at 28, a mother of 3. I had children very young and I had a high school diploma, no job skills, no experience, no post-secondary education. And that was in an era when there were no career coaches. There was not ready access to workforce centers. I was terrified. And I really spent my professional life trying to figure out how to make it possible for a working adult with a good work ethic and the desire to transform their lives, as Jane Davis did. I've spent my life trying to figure out how to expedite the process to make it possible for a working adult to actually develop skills, learn, earn more, and slowly but surely attain middle class status and beyond, really access the American dream. I think education and training can do that, but what is very evident is that we can't do one size fits all when it comes to education and training. So there are two things. The reason I'm so proud of the Fast Forward Workforce Credentials is because the community colleges and the General Assembly and our state leaders figured out a way to align shorter term training and education programs to real labor market needs. The same industry sectors my colleague John Doherty talked about, information technology, healthcare, skilled trades and construction, transportation. We figured out manufacturing and logistics. These are sectors that have good jobs, opportunities for progression, apprenticeships, earn to learn, paid tuition reimbursements. They make it possible for an adult to do right by their children, to earn a living, and to continue to progress. So we do that in short sessions. We do that through a statewide grant that allows us to pay students to take high demand occupations like healthcare, like CDL. That's what the Fast Forward grant is. And we do it by targeting every aspect of those programs to the needs of adults, be it classes on weekends, classes at night, and the list goes on and on. The second major strategy we have is that education can't do it alone. And so we're succeeding now where we haven't always succeeded at this level in the past, because I know Capricia, because I know John, because I know Brian Davis, because we're working with ChamberRVA. The idea of a coalition that collectively we bring each of us what our organizations do best is making a difference. So last year, we provide all the truck drivers the region needs? And is there a significant new requirement imposed by the federal government that before you take your CDL license, you've got to have training? Yes, there is, but we can provide that now with tuition support, and we can provide it knowing that the Office of Community Wealth Building and the 45 community-based organizations that United Way has created a coalition out of to support our students, Brian Davis's job seekers. We can do that now with access to the services adults need to stand a shot at getting through programs and into employment.
Excellent. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm going to jump to Megan. Megan, tell us about your organization and what strategies you have in place to help the population we're discussing tonight.
Yep. So our organization helps serve some of these same underemployed, unemployed folks who also might have a history of incarceration. And so one of the questions coming up is about partnerships. So I'll hold that there for that question. But I think we use some of the same strategies that you've heard Capricia talk about, which is listening, right? Listening to what it is that the people want and need. And we do not come in to do for, but to do with. The other thing that I think that is less of a hard skill training that we do is that we really try and listen to folks and understand what is it that was poured into us each as in our formative years, right? Because we start to believe those things. And so then we operate out of those things. And so how do we peel the onion to figure out what's the core? What do folks believe? And if we can align that and maybe reposition it to see folks believe in themselves and see their goodness and their skills and abilities, they wind up finding jobs, right? They are finding those jobs. As you saw in Brian's presentation, we have many more jobs than we do employees. And so they're out there. It's just an understanding of their own inherent goodness and their ability to join the workforce. So some of our strategies have helped our folks to enter the workforce before the program is even completed. So those are our key strategies and, granular programmatic support.
Okay, thank you, Megan. James, we'd love to hear your input on this question.
All right, so I first like to start by saying, quote of Marcus Garvey, right? If you have no confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race of life. So at the Ambassador Program, we strategize around helping individuals to get that confidence in themselves. We hire directly out of our lower income environments and create opportunity for individuals to get into work and be a part of the work. It's very important that we get individuals that are from these communities a part of the work. So here at the Ambassador Program, we plot, plan, and strategize on how to expose the communities that are suffering from lack of exposure, a lot of them. So it's not that people don't want different, a lot of times they just may have never been exposed to it. So at the Ambassador Program, we also turn the Ambassador Program into a registered apprenticeship program. I see the Department of Labor on the call. So what we're trying to do is put community members through 1,000 hours worth of training, through trainings with everything from at Virginia Union to Richmond Public Libraries, and at the end graduate with a journeyman's card in workforce development. So what that does is it helps to even the playing field a little bit. Like myself, so many individuals don't get the opportunity because the process keeps us locked out, right? So if you don't have the degree or you don't have the paperwork, you may not get the opportunity to apply for the job. So what that journeyman's card at workforce development do is you may not have the degree, but you do have the related instruction and you do have the training and you have the lived experience and time in the field. That's something that is extremely important to us. So when we create this apprenticeship program, now companies can take this towards their HR departments and say they may not have the degrees, but they do have the related instruction and the actual experience. Then we also look at, particularly myself, of making sure that the work is equitable, right? Am I doing something that I want to do, or is this truly the need of the community? And paying close attention to that need. That is very, very, very important, that we don't continue to create programs for communities and bring them in, but ask communities the actual programs that they need. And we also strategize on letting the community know that if you give them the resources, they can solve a lot of their needs, right? Success occurs when your dreams get bigger than your excuses. We're taking the excuses off the table for the community, right? We are putting community members to the table and providing them with the opportunity to plot, plan, and strategize on how to help their communities.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks for your enthusiasm on all of this. I'm going to change and ask a different question, and we're going to start with Melody on this question. And I know, Melody, you think you know what I'm going to ask, but I'm going to change it a little bit because we've had some really interesting questions. The basis of what I'm asking you is, why are there so many jobs that are not being filled quickly in our community? And I'm wondering if there are ways to speed up the process to get people into jobs faster, whether it's certification or some type of training program. And I'm also wondering, for you and the next couple of people I chat with, what are we doing specifically in our Black and Brown communities to escalate their training and entry into our workforce? So with that, Melody, take that curveball and knock it out.
Thank you, Scott. I would say, well, I'll just kind of touch on the labor shortage. So we are obviously experiencing a labor shortage. I think that there's a higher concentration with entry-level and mid-level jobs. I think this is a result of a few different things, to include obviously COVID-19. I think people are concerned about their risk of contracting the virus in the workplace. There's lack of access to affordable childcare. Folks are saving money a bit more because of the stimulus plan provided by the current administration. But I also think that, because of the overall state of this country and the murder of George Floyd, people are, in this self-exploration period right now, right? And so people are seeking purpose in their respective lives. And I think they're opting to explore different paths to provide for their families. And one of those paths happen to be entrepreneurship. That's my lens. That's the area in which I work. I think something we have to mention is, prior to COVID and even now, so many of the job opportunities didn't even offer a livable wage. So I do believe people are kind of holding out right now to see if both employment opportunities are going to present better compensation packages, perhaps, while also exploring matters, that value that's more important to them and to their families. I think, in a nutshell, people are taking stock of their value, of their worth, of their time, and entrepreneurship is becoming increasingly attractive and an option for individuals as they take that time to pause. And so, the Jackson Ward Collective, we are, at that last piece, we are creating some resources, and we're connecting Black entrepreneurs specifically, or even aspiring entrepreneurs, to resources to help them during the exploration phase. We believe that small business, particularly Main Street businesses, are the backbone to our local economy. They employ us, they employ our neighbors, they take care of our children. And so as a result of that, we think that there's some opportunity for us all to center and prioritize small business community beyond, just like the tech and startup businesses. And so that is that's my answer. I think that's what's happening.
Great. Thank you, Melody. Y'all check out her website, the Jackson Ward Collective, and learn all of the interesting, exciting things that she's doing in that community. It goes far beyond jobs, but certainly the creation of jobs is very important. So thank you, Melody, for that. I'm going to ask the same question to Katie. Uh, Tell us about what you're doing to get people into the workforce faster and talk about our communities of greatest need.
Yeah, I think Melody really hit on it strong, right? I think people after a pandemic are really thinking through what brings them joy. And I think when you go through something like our country and the world just went through with this pandemic, I think you see a lot of people reevaluating their worth and really taking a step back and saying, hey, I no longer can not only can my family not afford to make minimum wage, but I'm wanting something bigger than what I have. And I think that's completely rational after you come out of a global pandemic like we just did. And so I think as companies, we really have had to take a step back. And this was pre-pandemic for us. We try to look at the jobs that we have and pay well above the national average across all of our jobs at Meta, because I think it just shows the value the company takes into their employees. And I think that also helps with equity and pay as well, to really look at the job profile and determining what that salary base is. We have an entire team that does that within the company. So for us, and the way our company treats our employees, it's really helped us retain talent. It's a really great place to work with the benefits and the pay and just making sure that the salaries are aligned well above the national average for the role. One of the ways we also do this is just through the culture we have within the company, right? We are definitely a company that believes in a team collaboration, that believes in making sure everyone is heard in the room. We have a one team effort and motto within our company. And part of that is making sure that everyone has a voice and everyone's able to share how they're feeling. And I think as a company that goes a long way, just hearing that from leadership and also having the support that we need there. I will also say one of the ways that we're really giving back locally in the Richmond community is through some of our programming with small businesses. Most small businesses use our platforms and products to promote what they do. Small businesses really could have during COVID turned to Instagram shopping to keep their businesses alive. We provided small business grants locally. But I think some of our large scale marketing campaigns like Buy Black Friday that we do every November, where we focus on Black owned businesses. Cheryl has been doing a lot of talks with Black owned business owners on her platform, which has millions of followers, to really focus on some of those businesses. But I think, we could talk all day about how small businesses are the backbone of our economies and the backbone of our communities. But I think when we can shed light on our minority-owned businesses, and we do that through our campaigns throughout the year, I think it really gives us as a company not only what we're doing to build that culture internally at Meta to retain workforce, but we're expanding that out into the communities where we live and where we work. And part of that is through our small business programming and just how we're focusing on minority-owned businesses through grants, and also through just sharing what minority-owned businesses are doing. I have a question here about the interview process at Meta, and we hire the best folks, right? We have a focus across our company in making sure that we are hiring efficiently. And so the interview process, we are constantly posting jobs on our Henrico Data Center Facebook page. So whether that's DPR roles or Meta roles, we're posting them there. And then you meet with our team. And I think one of the best things is that it's not a hiring manager making the decision, but you go through an interview loop to avoid any discrepancies. You're looping with multiple people at our company to ensure that every person on that loop has a say in who gets to be hired. It's not a hierarchical decision, which I think really creates a fair and balanced process.
Great. Thanks for answering that audience question. We're going to do a couple of speed round. There's so much to cover here, and I wish we had several hours tonight. So I'm going to convert to the speed round, and I'll start with Capricia. And you've got 2, maybe 3 sentences before I stop you. So I want to know, what's your greatest obstacle for achieving greater success in the city of Richmond? What do you need? How can people on this call help you?
We partner to operate a program called the Giving Wall, and we also partner with an organization called Befriend. If we could get more living bodies to contribute to those 2 attributes, we would be able to bless more people with resources. The Giving Wall is an opportunity for individuals to give so that those who have a need can post their need and those needs be absorbed. And mentoring through Befriend is an organization that helps us with some of the case management by becoming a friend or a mentor to individuals who need a little more hand-holding. And so both of those resources would be available in an asset if you all could.
Okay. All right, next round. Elizabeth, tell us what your greatest obstacle or challenge is and how we can get more people credentialed and into jobs.
John kind of nailed it. We need more connectors. We need more people to refer. You know, the high school graduate that's still living at home with mom and dad, the transitioning service member, the returning citizen recently incarcerated who needs a fresh start, the single mom who's ready to start working. We just need more people to engage those around them, those they know and love, in explorations of what's their next step. And I think our biggest obstacle, and this is why I feel so empowered by this conversation tonight, we need to think bigger. We need to think that the coalition, we need to believe that a coalition such as the one that is blossoming in Greater Richmond, the organizations you brought together tonight, that we can make a difference and close that skills gap, help industry, help our regional economic development by filling that talent gap, and do it with those individuals, with those residents of neighborhoods that haven't experienced full employment, that don't know what it is to be on a career pathway to upward mobility. We need to believe we can do it. And we need to start taking our initiatives to scale and not being content to beat last year's numbers, but really looking at what the labor market demands and meeting it.
Excellent. That was inspirational. Thanks, Elizabeth. Melody, what's your obstacle? What do you need to burst through the ceiling?
On the Jackson Ward Collective side, I would just encourage everyone to help us with spreading the word about Jackson Ward Collective to Black business owners in your network, to include aspiring business owners so that they can gain support and be part of our network. You can contribute to our grant fund, which supports some of the expenses member businesses incur as they are launching their business, as they're getting buttoned up and scaling their business. And then there's also an opportunity for you to become a sponsor. And I think our information is in the chat, melody@jacksonwardcollective.com. If you have interest in any of those areas, I welcome the opportunity to meet with you.
Okay, Megan, you talk to us. What's your obstacle? What do you need?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we would like to see folks learn more about and employ in the community is the state bonding program. That's from the federal government. And so, you know, it's 6 months of bonding someone. It's no cost to the employer. It covers $5,000 and it covers 4 specific areas. I was watching a webinar and they said, you know, there's been no one in the state that's ever had to use it, right? So employers need to know if they need that assurance that they're hiring a good person, but they're just a little nervous about it. Give a person 6 months opportunity, and I guarantee you'll be blown away by how good folks are and how ready they are to work. And so I'd like to see more collective action on understanding the bonding program to help folks get into those pathways of, you know, good wage positions and jobs.
So I'm wondering, James, how do you respond to this? I think you've found 130 jobs for folks during COVID. How can we double that?
All right, so I first would like to say support your local and state workforce development centers and technical and training institutions first, but also support the ambassador program. Please, please, please allow community ambassadors the opportunity to apply for jobs at your organizations. It will really work. It will really help you and help you to connect deeper inside of the community, but also talk to your HR departments. Tell them you have hit the mother load of community members who are trained, ready, and can get in there, but also, you know, fight a little bit to change those policies and procedures that may have been on the books for years that keep a certain population of individuals locked out.
Thank you, James. And you did the speed round really well. You win the prize. Okay. We are at a point where we want to entertain some questions from our viewers. And if Sylvia wants to jump in and share any of those questions, the panel's ready for you.
Great. Yes, we have some great questions. One that just came in, I'd like to read because I think it's a really focused and important question. We work with future career seekers and know that the interests of young people don't often align with industry needs. We partner with educators and leaders to find ways to get the workforce in the wings interested in jobs that are poised for growth, but I'd like to hear the panel's thoughts on this.
Jump in, anybody.
I'm going to jump in quickly. I think this is where Elizabeth talks about think bigger, right? And I think that we need to pivot to be listening to and hearing how younger folks are envisioning what work looks like. I think Melody is on point when she says people are taking a pause to reevaluate. And those are the folks that, as they're reevaluating, we should be listening to.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in too and say, firstly, I don't believe in discouraging young people in their career aspirations, however grandiose they might seem. What ultimately you can do as you begin to work with them is get them some career coaching, figure out what the underlying interests, aptitudes, what the aspirations might be, and then figure out how that correlates to jobs that either exist or are emerging. Certainly young people sometimes point the way to jobs that may not be thought of as jobs now, but are emerging. And we saw that certainly in the IT sector. But if you can get at what sort of the passion is, there is a job out there that's going to somehow connect to that and that the labor market needs.
Also, through our Mayor's Youth Academy with the Office of Community Wealth Building, we also have the opportunity, again, in our two-generation approach to make sure that those kids get heard. They use the Youth Council to develop policy and help the mayor design how his protocol should come down for future planning. So we can get more kids involved in our Youth Council and Mayor's Youth Academy as well.
I'll also just jump in and say, I think it's really important for all of us, especially those of us who work for larger companies, to make sure we're sharing with our kids in our local community that you don't have to leave to get a great job. And the more that we can be a part of workforce development programs in schools or talking through what we do at our data center, we want to make sure that folks know that you don't have to leave your community, your home, to find great jobs. And I think the more that companies like ours can continue to talk through the work that we're doing right there locally to ensure that we keep our students here, I think it's really important. But they don't have to move to California to get a great job. There are great opportunities right here in our hometown.
Thank you for those answers. And I want to follow with one that follows really nicely from those responses. And I'm also going to read some of this question. This is from somebody who identifies themselves as a employee of VDH as a contractor, but also a participant in Legacy STEM's Academy for Carpentry, which I know is another really powerful new workforce training program in Richmond. And this is what she says: I am bilingual in Spanish and would like to see more education and job skill training for our Black and Brown communities, especially in that age group where it is currently most needed. My question is, why is it so difficult to provide job training to the largest underemployed group? And how does it correlate with the destruction of Richmond's public housing? And one final part here, do we need more connectors or do we need more employers who are willing to walk a career path with underemployed individuals?
I can answer part of that question. I'll first start to say that we have to do a better job at looking at ourselves, meaning the individuals that come from these communities. Me being an individual that come out of Fairfield Court, we have to do a better job at understanding sometimes that we are part of the problem and start to become part of the solution, one. And then two, we also as a whole have to do a better job at truly trying to work ourselves out of a job. Because once we work ourselves out of a job, that means we're successful. So our individuals gonna sign up for that piece, so.
I'm going to say the majority of our job seekers that we serve are Black or Brown students, but we have a long way to go in serving Greater Richmond's Hispanic population and providing job training and career coaching services in Spanish. What I need, honestly, and I feel what our staff need is access and opportunity to listen to those community organizations and professionals who might help us put together a way to get better. Because I know our demographics, I track them every week, and I know what populations we can feel that we're succeeding at, where we need to work, and we've got work to do when it comes to Hispanic populations. And I am very open to strategies. I take directions well.
Any other questions, Sylvia, that you'd like to share?
We do have one more pointing back to the data that I believe Brian shared about the large number of people employed, maybe the surprising number of people in our region to some of us employed by small businesses under 200 employees. So this person asks, given that 2/3 of new jobs are at companies with 25 to 200 employees, how do we better connect with them to help them understand programs like Network to Work and to help them hire, retain, and upskill non-traditional talent? Any thoughts on that?
Could you repeat part of that question?
I think it's really about how we connect with small businesses to
Okay.
help them connect with the programs that might actually be working with job seekers. Is there a gap there that we can address at this panel?
I think, and I can take that question. There's a lot of organizations within the entrepreneurial ecosystem that are working to service our small business community. And so I think to get a bang for your buck, you start there. I'm happy to share the list because there's a few of us doing work in this space. But you start with your Office of Minority Business Development, the Metropolitan Business League, the Jackson Ward Collective, Small Business Development Center. And there are probably 5 other organizations. And so if you start there, you'll definitely have access to a great database of small businesses that you can connect with.
And I think this ties back into the last question, and I wanted to make sure everyone had an opportunity to speak. I think what this all boils down to is those community partnerships and that communication piece and making sure that we're all working together for the collective effort. I think we're all trying to run to the same direction. I think part of it is making sure we're running together and as a team and making sure we're listening, making sure we're seeing gaps and we're not waiting for the gap hole to grow. We're figuring out ways to fill it. So I think at the end of the day, the more we can rely on each other as a community, which is what a community is for, the better off we're going to be. We try to bring together small businesses for trainings almost every day across the country to showcase, how we can best help their small businesses succeed. But I think what we hear the most in getting groups of small businesses and communities all across the US together is that they enjoy just connecting with one another and sharing what's working and what's not. And even if they get nothing from the 1-hour training, it's truly that time to come together and listen and share ideas together on how we get better as a community. So I say all that to say, and this is going back to the last question, the more we can continue to build those partnerships, the better off our community is going to be.
Hit the nail on the head, Katie.
And I also believe that good old-fashioned boots on the ground community engagement. That's hitting the streets door to door, person to person, and engaging individuals, but also, taking advantage of our apprenticeship programs. I personally work directly with the Department of Labor and ask companies, almost bug them to death and ring their doorbell every day and ask them to set up apprenticeship programs and then find the bodies to actually put into those programs to help make that connection as well.
Excellent. Well, I have to thank everyone for the great questions. There are more questions than there is time to answer them. I want to start and express a lot of gratitude to our two previous speakers, Brian Anderson and John Doherty, and then just take a look at this talented panel who I know we could spend the rest of the evening with. Thank you all for your time, and really more importantly, thank you for everything you're doing every day. I know the odds seem overwhelming, but you folks help people one at a time, and that's what breaks barriers and breaks cycles. So very, very thankful and appreciative of all that you do. We are super close to the end of our time together. I just want to summarize and reflect on a few things I've heard this evening. I've heard the word collaboration a lot, coming together. I think there are people on this call, and there are many, many in the audience who are great collaborators. But I'm going to tell you, do more. Let's get connected. Send emails to the organizers of this, or to send emails to people who are on the panel. And let's get together, develop a relationship, and figure out how we can do things better and faster, because people truly need us. And there are change makers listening to us tonight. I'm scrolling through the list of people on the call, and I'm not going to name last names, but Patty and Bill and Cameron and Chris, Deb, Jamel, Jewel, Jennifer. I could go on and on and on. Stan, Wilma, Grace. Step up. Let's get involved and let's make some stuff happen. So that's one thing I heard. And really related to that is, let's think bigger. Let's think bigger and let's think better. Richmond is an amazing place. We are doing great work. We should focus on the positive, not what we read in the paper every day. And these people are here to prove it. So think bigger, let's collaborate. And I hope that tonight has sparked you in some way, that you're moved to action. And action could be, I want to just go Google something and learn a bit more. Action could mean I'm talking to my neighbor. I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to reach out to one of these people and I'm going to learn more. So with that, enjoy the rest of your evening. Those of us on the panel now get to go have some dinner. The rest of you, you're in your slippers. Continue to enjoy your night. And thank you so much for joining us.